The story begins in a high-security prison in Colorado, where a man named Ray Breslin was locked up. One day, another inmate warned him to stay away from a prisoner named Jack, because Jack Reaper was planning an attack. The very next day, according to his plan, Jack attacked Reaper. But he couldn't stand against Ray, and eventually Ray won. However, because of this fight, the guards punished Ray by locking him up in a separate chamber. This was the part of the prison where the most dangerous criminals were kept in confinement 24/7. The new room didn't even have a window, only a toilet. Apart from that, he was monitored round the clock with cameras. Ray immediately started thinking about planning an escape. He roamed around the prison carefully, calculating his chances. He noticed that right next to the prison, there was a garage. Both facilities had fewer guards. Over the next few days, Ray carefully observed every guard's routine. He noticed that the guards would leave for exactly 7 minutes to smoke a cigarette. Now, all he needed was the passcode to his cell door. For this, he peeled off the plastic from the milk container that came with his food and secretly pressed it against the screen of the passcode lock. Soon, he got the digits of the code, and arranging them in the correct order wasn't a big deal for him. He also managed to send word to his team outside, telling them that on the day of his escape, they needed to set off an explosion in the nearby garage at exactly 4 p.m. Finally, the day arrived. Ray used the passcode to get out of his chamber. He went through the pipes, made his way to the garage, and at that moment his team created a blast outside to distract everyone. Soon, the fire brigade arrived. Ray quietly clung under one of their trucks and escaped. They dropped him off on a deserted road. But soon the police caught him. At that moment, a man named Lester appeared and ordered the police to let Ray go. Afterward, Lester and Ray went to meet the prison officials, and that's when the truth came out. Ray was actually the owner of a security company. This company specialized in testing the security of prisons all over the world. Ray wasn't a real criminal. He would deliberately get locked up in prisons to find flaws in their systems so the authorities could improve them. He had escaped from so many prisons that people started to believe this man could escape from anywhere. 5 months later, he returned to his office, where he casually played a simple game and made his friends laugh. Then his partner Lester introduced him to a woman named Jessica. She wanted Ray to test the world's most secret and heavily guarded prison. But her condition was that neither Ray nor his team would be told where this prison was located. For this job, she was ready to pay millions of dollars. Ray wasn't very convinced, but after Lester persuaded him, he agreed. They gave him the fake identity of a terrorist, and even implanted a tracker in his arm. But soon someone kidnapped him, drugged him, and surgically removed the tracker from his arm. When Ray woke up, he found himself inside a glass box surrounded by other inmates. Later, he was introduced to the prison's warden, Hobbs. But Ray had been told earlier that the warden's name would be Marsh. That's when he realized something was wrong. He used a special code phrase that was supposed to get him released in an emergency. But Hobbs ignored it and sent him straight back into the prison. Meanwhile, outside, Jessica and Lester were desperately trying to find Ray's location. Inside, Ray noticed that all the guards wore the same uniform and masks, and they would beat anyone whenever they wished. Later, an inmate named Emil approached Ray and told him that he hadn't committed any crime, but was still here because some people wanted information from him. That's when Ray understood. There were no real criminals in this prison. Rich and powerful people sent their enemies here just to torture them. Soon, Ray had to be transferred to the high-security torture zone. To make that happen, he deliberately picked a fight with the guards. Finally, he and Emil were thrown into special cells that were nothing short of torture chambers. The room's temperature was unbearably high, the blinding lights made them dizzy, and the warden enjoyed watching all this suffering through the cameras. The next day, Dr. Kiley came to check on Ray. She felt a bit of pity for him. But when Ray asked her where this prison was located, she refused to answer. Eventually, Ray and Emil were released from the torture cell. Ray noticed that the floor wasn't aluminum, but steel. He asked Emil to get him a metal strip so he could loosen the bolts in the floor. Later, Emil was called in by the warden, who once again demanded information about his boss. But Emil didn't say a word. So the guards brutally tortured him by forcing a water pipe into his mouth. Still, during this ordeal, Emil managed to steal a small piece of metal. Afterward, he asked Ray about his escape plan. Ray replied that, according to his calculation, this prison was built underground. Even if they managed to loosen the bolts and get out, they would still need to carve a way upward to reach the surface. Hearing this, Emil became convinced that this man really did know something, and that he could be their way out. According to the plan, they once again got into a fight so that they'd be thrown back into the punishment cells. There, Ray began secretly loosening the bolts while hiding from the cameras. When he had nearly finished, he signaled Emil to distract the guards. Emil suddenly started shouting, drawing all attention toward him. In that moment, Ray covered the camera with a piece of paper and slipped through the floor. But accidentally, he broke a pipe, causing water to flood everywhere. When he finally made it up, he saw the shocking truth: this prison wasn't on land at all. It was actually inside a massive ship, floating deep in the middle of the ocean. Ray quickly returned to his chamber. Meanwhile, Jessica and Lester spoke with the prison board about Ray. It turned out the check Ray received for this job had bounced, and Jessica had completely disappeared. Because of this, they asked Lester to find Ray. But Lester insisted that Ray should be left to finish his job. After they left, Lester called the warden and ordered him to keep Ray locked up for life. That's when the shocking twist was revealed. Lester wanted to become the sole owner of the company. That's why he had set up this fake deal, sending Ray into the prison permanently. Jessica and Hush, however, didn't give up. Hush discovered that an illegal prison existed, where powerful people kept their enemies locked away, but its location was unknown. Inside the prison, Ray and Emil needed to figure out where in the world they actually were. For this, Ray asked the doctor for help, but the doctor refused. So Ray stole a mattress and crafted a makeshift device, a sextant, that could help pinpoint the ship's location. For that, though, he needed access to the ship's upper deck. He asked a prisoner named Javid for help. Later, Javid pretended to become the warden's informant. In return, he requested permission to pray under the open sky. The unsuspecting warden allowed it. With this chance, Javid helped Ray calculate the ship's coordinates using the device. Finally, Ray worked out that they were somewhere in the Atlantic Ocean, near Morocco. Emil then told him that he had a friend in Morocco. If they could somehow send him a message, that friend would definitely come with a team to rescue them. They turned again to the doctor, who eventually agreed to help. That night, the doctor sent an email to Emil's friend, giving him the prison's location. At last, the escape day arrived. Javid misled the warden, telling him that a big fight was about to break out in Block A. Hearing this, the warden sent nearly all guards there. Only 2 guards were left at the special cells. Ray seized the opportunity, started a fight, and soon everyone was brawling. Meanwhile, Ray, Emil, and Javid climbed toward the ship's upper section. But before they could reach it, the warden ordered a total lockdown. All the doors slammed shut, forcing them to retreat. At that very moment, Emil's friend and his team arrived in helicopters above the ship. Inside, chaos erupted as guards and prisoners engaged in a fierce gunfight. During the crossfire, Javid was shot in the stomach. Ray quickly thought of a new plan. He would go to the control room and cut the ship's power supply, which would reopen the upper doors. He told Emil to look after Javid, then ran ahead. Knowing he wouldn't survive much longer, Javid urged Emil to leave him behind. Reluctantly, Emil ran off. Soon after, guards killed Javid. Meanwhile, Ray succeeded in cutting the ship's power, and Emil managed to climb all the way up. Emil dashed toward the helicopter waiting above, but guards attacked them from behind. Emil and his rescuers fought back, refusing to give up, while anxiously waiting for Ray. But Ray was trapped. He had fallen into the ship's water tank. Guards searched everywhere for him. So, in a last attempt, he forced open a hatch and jumped straight into the ocean. From above, Emil saw Ray drowning. He quickly dropped a rope ladder from the helicopter. Ray climbed up, grabbed a gun, and fired relentlessly at the ship's oil tanks. A massive explosion shook the ship, killing the warden and his guards. Finally, Emil and Ray reached Morocco's shores safely. Just then, a car arrived to pick them up. To Ray's shock, Jessica stepped out of the car, the same woman who had sent him into the prison. When Emil revealed that Jessica was his daughter, Ray was stunned. It was then revealed that Emil, was actually Jessica's father, and he had been hiding his identity to protect her from enemies. Jessica's real plan had been to free her father from the prison. That's why she had tricked Ray into entering it. In the end, she exposed Lester's betrayal, how he had secretly allied with the warden to get rid of Ray. Finally, Ray reunited with Abigail and Hush, where he learned the whole truth. Lester had been promised that if Ray failed to escape, he would be made the CEO of the prison. But when Lester realized that Ray had survived, he tried to flee. However, Hush ambushed him in his car. When Lester woke up, he was still inside the vehicle, but he had no idea that the car was now loaded onto a cargo ship full of thousands of containers. And nobody knew where this ship was headed. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like it and subscribe to the channel. See you in the next one.